indicating that neither the UN, NATO, US, everyone's calling it a sham.
Everyone's calling it a sham?
Yeah. And then Russia is blaming, calling America colonists. And going back to the true nature.
You know what? You can move, since you are on camera, you can move a little closer so that your sound doesn't come. Or you trying to be? You want the bar there?
Yeah.
Yes, the sound is a bit muddled.
Oh, okay.
So that means you speak a little louder or.
No. I'm right. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. Go ahead.
So that America is just essentially calling it a sham, and then Russia is trying to pinpoint America with the true nature of their history, calling them colonizers. But the territories they're talking about that Russia is taking control of, they're talking about making moves, meaning NATO making moves to annex the same territory or annex Ukraine as a whole. So just a bunch of nuclear, nuclear talk. I've been listening to Paul Mitchell also.
Say that again.
Just listening to Paul Mitchell also. Okay. But just the media, they're just criminalizing and defaming Russia and talking about implementing even more sanctions on them here by winter.
Okay. All right. Well, let me say this, Zach. So everything is going according to plan by the Most High. What's really underway is, well, let me ask you this. So are you able, I say you, not just yourself, Nagaha, but anyone else, are you guys able to decipher or to discern? Because this is not about who's right and who's wrong. This is about who's being used by the Most High to accomplish what. So this goes back all the way, believe it or not, to 1492, right? So I'm gonna show you, this is what we'll do first. Let's identify what's taking place. What's taking place is the fall, the collapse, the destruction of Western civilization. Now that's just a term. Western civilization. I gotta say this because the objective is not for you guys to lose your what is this YouTube account. But what is taking place is Esau is where we were a little over 500 years ago. When I say where we were, meaning over here in the Americas, you had various Israelite civilizations that the Europeans will call the Indians, the Aztecs, Mayans, Incas, and then also all of those not as advanced, right, Native American societies, right? You had our people living like that. Now remember, we're going back pre-1492. Then you had the king now, and those people of the Americas, right? The Israelites of the kingdom of the north, Samaria. That's who the Americas was completely and densely occupied with. That's in the scripture. You guys know 2 Ezra chapter 13 at the end, right? Verse 40 on down. Okay, the kingdom of Judah, 70 AD, fled into the continent of Africa, dispersed among the nations, and set up small kingdoms and abode there, not necessarily in peace, but abode there, roughly 1,400 years, 1,400 years, from 70 AD to the coming of I believe the first Europeans to really come in and start colonizing that continent and conquering and taking slaves back to Europe was actually Portugal, right, during the 1440s, even before Christopher Columbus would get out to, and head west. So when I say 1492, let's do this. Let's go to Revelation chapter 13, and we're only going to do, Dawiya, are you there?
Yes, sir.
I want you to do the reading, okay? So chapter 13 and verses 1 through 3.
All right.
Go ahead.
Revelation chapter 13, verse 1 through 3. And I stood upon the sand of the sea and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns.
Now listen, okay, go ahead.
And upon his horns 10 crowns.
So you guys know, hold on, you guys know that I'm dealing with let's say an informed congregation. You guys are now, I see a new brother there. I don't know if he has this, but what we're going over, brother, you in the great air, is it begins actually in Genesis, in Daniel chapter 2, and then from Daniel chapter 2 to Daniel chapter 7. Daniel chapter 7 and Daniel chapter 2 lets us know concerning the phenomena that people refer to as apocalypse. The apocalypse is a word that means the revealing or the uncovering. But the information that's being uncovered is concerning the last days. It's concerning the days before the coming of Christ and the end of the world, so to speak, as we know it. And so because the book of Revelations and Daniel's refers to that information, people associate the apocalypse with being the end of the world. But the apocalypse in and of itself is a word that means the uncovering or the revealing. And that's why in English, the book is called Revelation. It's the revealing. In Spanish, it's called El Apocalipsis, Portuguese or Apocalipsis, all those different words, right? Kind of mean the same, but it means the uncovering. So people think that it's about the end of people think that the apocalypse means the end of the world because the revealing or the apocalyptic information is concerning the end of the world. But really it's about it's something that the Most High wants us to see that the world haven't seen before. So that's what's being revealed, the end. Now, not the end of the earth, not the end of the world, the end of the age, the end of the time of the Gentiles, all right? I'm gonna give you these verses and just kind of bring you up to speed. And I don't know how much time you have there, but the brothers can help you with the different classes and the recordings that they have to catch you up to speed. So, long story short, we are at the end of a succession of kingdoms, of a succession of empires that was informed. We were informed of from the time of Daniel chapter 7. Daniel chapter 7 spoke of 4 beasts, right? Let's do that real quick. And let me say this: y'all got to pay attention to write, or if you don't write, pay attention and make sure you get a hold to this recording. Go back on the We're gonna go through it very fast. So I want you to go, Dawiyad, because I'm gonna link Daniel with we're gonna go from Daniel 7, speed through Daniel 7 only to verse 7, and get to and go from there to 2nd Ezra chapter 11 and 12. Very fast, just a couple of verses that's going to bring us to Revelation 13. Because this is about the expansion, the trajectory of the historical expansion of Western or European civilization. Those people, there are those of us, including myself, that will say the white world, right? The white civilization, the so-called white civilization, because they're not white. Okay, so real quick, Dawiyad, you got Daniel chapter 7? Daniel chapter 7, verses 1 through 7. Go ahead and start off at verse 1.
Daniel chapter 7, verse 1 through 7. In the first year of Belshazzar, king of Babylon, Daniel had a dream and visions of his head upon his bed. Then he wrote the dream and told the sum of the matters. Daniel
Now, let me say this, Nagaha. This might seem like it's the long way around, but you have those that if I start off with where you know already, then those new people are not going to get it. You understand?
No,
but we're going to get to what's taking place in Russia before this class. You're going to see it. Go ahead, and then you're going to see who's the aggressor. You're going to see who's the aggressor and who's not. Go ahead.
Daniel spake and said, I saw in my vision by night, and behold, the four winds of the heaven strove upon the great sea, and four great beasts came up.
Hold on, y'all. Yetazar's chiming in. Shalom, Yetazar. So that means Yahweh, as soon as he gets settled, he's going to take the reading over, okay? And y'all can take your notes. Yetazar, Brother Nagaha asked a question concerning things revolving around what's taking place between Russia and Ukraine. And I'm just taking everybody very swiftly through where it begins on up to the point that we're at today. And this is going to show y'all how close we are to the coming of Christ, y'all. This is no joke. So he just got through reading Daniel chapter 7, verse 1 and 2. So I need for you to read Daniel chapter 7 and verse 3. The goal is to go Daniel chapter 7, verses 1 through 7. We're gonna, well, just stay with me, okay? So go ahead, read verse 3 now.
Okay, 1 second.
And this is why people are not going to, the world is not going to understand what's going on. And the world is going to, people in the world, including our people that are ignorant, are going to be choosing sides. You see, in the beginning, from February, you know, I stand with Ukraine, and everybody with the little, whatever their social media is, they got the Ukrainian flag in the background. But up until like December of last year, you can maybe they might have scrubbed the internet, but Ukraine is openly known to being the most corrupt country in Europe. Period, point blank. For all the child trafficking, everything, prostitution, everything, like it happening in every country. But like in Holland, you got a red light district where college girls go and sell their body to work their way through school. It's not like it was, it's not like it is in Ukraine. So this, like I said, all is not what it appears to be. The people are ignorant and they're being manipulated by media propaganda. And that's in the scriptures as well. But go ahead, I'll read on down, verse 3.
Daniel chapter 7 and verse 3. And four great beasts came up from the sea, diverse one from another.
Okay, stop right there. The first thing we do is we identify what these beasts are. So go to verse 17. This is going to tell you. Daniel saw four great beasts, so that you don't think these is Godzilla and Rodan, you know, and that type of stuff. We'll find out. Go ahead, Amiyah. Verse 17, same chapter.
Daniel chapter 7 verse 17. These great beasts, which are four kings, which shall arise out of the earth.
So this is now when they say kings, start talking about individuals. The king represents the empire or the kingdom which he presides over. We'll get to that also. So now that we know that these are, quote, four kings, right? The beasts are symbolic for the kingdoms that they preside over. Go ahead, Art, and read on down. Go back to chapter 7 and verse 3 now. Or I guess you're on verse 4.
Yep.
Go ahead.
Daniel chapter 7 and verse 4. The first was like a lion and had eagle's wings.
Now, this is an image that represents the Babylonian Empire, right? With respect. Now, Daniel is in Babylon. All right. So this represents what we could say the incumbent kingdom. The incumbent Daniel is in Babylon. The lion represents the kingdom of the Babylonians. We know that image as the griffin. If any of you are old enough to have watched them old Sinbad movies, those old Eastern movies, that was one of the animals sometimes that those cats would have, Arabian Nights, they would have to fight. You know, if it was Greek, Jason, you'd be fighting the Cyclops and the Hydra, but over in the East, you'd be fighting what? The griffin. Go ahead.
I beheld till the wings thereof were plucked, and it was lifted up from the earth, and made stand upon the feet as a man.
So the man, now let me say this, these kingdoms that we're reading about as well, the timeline is with respect, or the timelines coincide to when these kingdoms' histories intersect with Israel's history. In other words, when they conquered us. So Babylon conquered Israel 586, the process began earlier, but 586, they overthrew Jerusalem, burnt the temple down, killed a whole bunch of people, and then took care of all the survivors as exiles and slaves to Babylon. So go ahead, Amiyata. This is that kingdom. Continue.
And a man's heart was given to it.
Go ahead.
Verse 5. And behold, another beast, a second, like to a bear, and it raised up itself on one side, and it had 3 ribs in the mouth of it.
Now,
between the
you
teeth
have
of it.
these ministries today that's telling you that this is the Russians because of the bear. They don't know anything. This is talking about the ancient empire that conquered and destroyed, not the land, but destroyed the armies of Babylon. They left the city intact. That was a coveted city, Babylon. So they assumed, quote, the position of being the preeminent kingdom, and so converted themselves to what? An empire. Who was it? It was the bear raising itself up on one side higher than the other. It represented the 2 kingdoms that work together as one, the Persians and the Medes. The Persian and the Medes land today, the Medes would be northern Iran and the Persians would be southern Iran. All right. So they went, Cyrus. Now this is in the book of Ezra, chapter 1, or 2 Chronicles, chapter 36, and the very last, the whole chapter. Right? How Babylon destroyed Jerusalem, and then in the first year of Cyrus, Cyrus the Persian came and took them down, and then issued a decree to release us so that we could return home and rebuild Jerusalem. So this is the Persian and Median Empire. The person who was used, the king or emperor who was used to usher that kingdom in with respect to Israel was what? Was Cyrus the Great. Go ahead, Amiyatazan. So that's the second beast, whose image is a bear and one side being higher than the other, because the Persian side was the dominant side. The Medes were vassal to them, but worked and operated as partners. Continue on the Yetazah.
And it had 3 ribs in the mouth of it, between the teeth of it.
Right. The 3 ribs represent the kingdoms that they had, that the Persians destroyed, that could have contended. And they were, number one, the incumbent kingdom was the Babylonians. That was one of the ribs. They had to destroy, devour the Babylonians. Then they went on, Cambyses, the son of Cyrus, went and conquered Egypt. And then they would move on to conquer up north, where the territory of today is Turkey, which is Lydia, Lydia. So those are the 3 ribs that fell to the Persians. Go ahead, Amiyatazah.
And they said thus unto it, arise, devour much flesh.
Right. Go ahead.
Verse 6. After this I beheld, and lo, another, like a leopard, which had upon the back of it 4 wings of a fowl.
Continue.
The beast had also 4 heads.
Okay, stop right there. This is representing the Greek Empire. Now, this right here is the advent, right, of today, what is called Western civilization. Because Babylon was in the east, right? Persia was in the east, Jerusalem's in the east, but Greece comes from Western Europe and what? And conquers all of those kingdoms. Conquers Egypt as well. 333 BC, 333 to 331 BC, the battles are fought, the Battle of Granicus, the Battle of I'm trying to think of those battles, those 3 for the most part, 3 Arbela, the 3 decisive battles between Alexander's armies and the final Darius's army. But the Greeks prevailed, and so this when it says that it had 4 wings and 4 heads, it's taking it from that period, from 331 all the way to the final. Let me say this: the Greeks turned on each other. Now these are studies that you guys can do on your own. You look up the successors' wars, because that was taking place now with the last of the Edomite empires. The successors' wars. That means those kings, those generals that succeeded Alexander, they began to fight for the remains or partition, and everyone grabbed their piece of what was Alexander's kingdom. And so between 331 Well, actually, I'm going to say 323 is the date that they give Alexander having died. From 323 all the way to 301, that's where this takes us. Meaning, when you see the four heads and the four wings, that's talking about those four generals. There were way more generals. Like, who sets out and conquer the world with four generals? But this is giving us a snapshot of history because the history is fluid. So they fought each other. Alexander died. They began, first they wanted to deal with a successor. Alexander had two sons. One son was from a woman from Persia or Parthia, and another son was his actual Macedonian, was the son of Alexander and a Macedonian woman. And that's who the regents wanted to be king. And then before you know it, everything went haywire. The Greeks start fighting one. I'm moving fast so we can get to the brothers, today. The Greeks start fighting one another. And this verse is a snapshot that takes us to 301 after the Battle of Ipsus. IPSUS. You got four generals now that have what? That are dominating the Hellenic world, the Greek world. Seleucus, that took Asia, who acquired Asia. The Ptolemies, who acquired Egypt. You had Lysimachus, who acquired the region more or less Thrace, Bithynia. Then you had also a Cassander, who actually had Macedonia and Greece. And they continued to fight. But that's what this verse is taking us. Those four dominant generals. It would eventually boil down to two, and that's Daniel chapter 11, the king of the south and the king of the north. The king of the south is the Ptolemaic dynasty, right, of the Edomites in Egypt. And then the king of the north is the Seleucid dynasty, those that took Asia. Which Asia? From Israel, Syria, Babylon, and Persia. That's who the Seleucid dynasty had. Okay, that's the third beast represented as a Greek with as a leopard with four heads and four wings. Continue on, Yetazar.
Bottom of verse 6. And dominion was given to it. Verse 7. After this, I saw in the night visions, and behold, a fourth beast, dreadful and terrible, and strong exceedingly. And it had great iron teeth. It devoured and brake in pieces, and stamped the residue with the feet of it. And it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it. And it had 10 horns.
All right, stop right there. So who conquered and superseded the Greeks or succeeded the Greeks? The Romans. But you notice, let me show you something. You notice that in these animals, the fourth beast, it isn't defined. It just is described. It tells you that it was fierce. It stamped the residue. It was more powerful than the beast before it. And it was different. It had 10 horns, but it still doesn't tell you what it was. Like the first one was a lion with eagle's wings. The second one was a bear with two sides, one side higher than the other. The third one was a leopard with four heads and four heads and four wings. So we have to go to 2nd Ezra chapter 11 in the Apocrypha to find out what that fourth beast was, meaning what was the image. So Yetazar, you're going to go to, drink this water. You're going to go to 2nd Ezra chapter 11, and you're going to read verses 1 through 3, all right?
2nd Ezra chapter 11, verse
Someone
1.
asked me a question. In the verse that is the man's heart given to the beast, is symbolic of the act that it was what? The term man's heart for the person that's asking the question is referring to a man's mind, meaning it's talking about the actual king that ushered that kingdom to the preeminent spot. It's talking about Nebuchadnezzar. All right. That's for the person that asking the question. The man's heart is a man's mind. Okay. I'm going to get to 2nd Ezra chapter 11 and verse 1, 2, and 3.
Then saw I a dream, and behold, there came up from the sea an eagle, which had 12 feathered wings and 3 heads.
Go ahead.
And I saw, and behold, she spread her wings over all the earth, and all the winds of the air blew on her and were gathered together. And I beheld, and out of her feathers there grew other contrary feathers.
You
And
only
they
gonna read to
became,
verse 3, right?
yeah,
Go ahead.
and they became little feathers and small. That's the end of
Okay.
verse 3.
So now, listen, it says an eagle, right? And it gives us the components of this eagle. It has 12 feathered wings, 3 heads, and then it had what was described simply as contrary feathers. Real quick, I'm gonna jump down to verse 8. What is it? Verse 8, verse 11, and it should tell us what how many contrary feathers. Verse 11.
2 Ezra chapter 11 and verse 11. And I numbered her contrary feathers, and behold, there were 8 of them.
All right. Now, this is nothing more than the structure that from the ancient times up until the present, the European civilization would grow to and take on. This is what it's done. It's focusing on all of the European power. Not talking about every aspect. Now, let's find out what this eagle is. So I'm gonna you jump on over to chapter 12, right? 2nd Ezra chapter 12, and you're gonna start off. Let me get it at verse. I want you to start off at verse 10. You're gonna read verses 10. This is cold. You're gonna read for now verses 10 through 12. I'm sorry, for now, verses 10 through 13. Okay. No, yeah, that's chapter. That's it. Go ahead. Chapter 12, verses 10 through 13.
2 Ezra chapter 12 and verse 10. And he said unto me, this is the interpretation of the vision. The eagle whom thou sawest come up from the sea is the kingdom which was seen in the vision of thy brother Daniel.
Boom, you got it. Why does he say that? The king, as a matter of fact, this is what you do. Maybe I jumped the gun. Go back to chapter 11 and pick it up from verse 36. Chapter 11, we're reading about the eagle. It's going to give us a little bit more. Verse 36, for now, verse 36 to verse 40.
2 Ezra chapter 11 and verse 36. Then I heard a voice which said unto me, look before thee and consider the thing that thou seest. And I beheld, and lo, as it were a roaring lion chased out of the wood. And I saw that he sent out a man's voice unto the eagle and said, hear thou, I will talk with thee.
The lion literally represents the spirit of Christ. The eagle is being spoken to and reprimanded by this lion. Go ahead.
Verse 38. Hear thou, I will talk with thee, and the highest shall say unto thee, art not thou it that remainest of the 4 beasts whom I made to reign in my world?
Stop. So you see the eagle is being spoken to by the lion who represents Christ. We know that Revelation chapter 5, the lion of the tribe of Judah, right? He's saying, aren't you the 4th beast that I made to reign in my world? Because who were the previous 3? We already read it. The Romans succeeded the Greeks, right? Who had previously conquered the Persians, who had previously overthrown the Babylonians. Beast number 1. So he's telling us, but he didn't use the word Romans. Go ahead. He gave us a description of a fierce beast and didn't even tell us what animal. It's only now that we realize that it was an eagle. Go ahead. Verse 39 from the top again.
Verse 39. Art not thou it that remainest of the 4 beasts whom I made to reign in my world, that the end of their times might come through them?
Now listen to this, you guys. He's telling us, he's recognizing the eagle and letting us know that the end of all the kingdoms was supposed to be ushered in by this eagle. That this eagle is the civilization that would be used to do what? To bring what Christ in Luke chapter 21 and what Paul in Romans chapter 11 described as what? As the age or the end of the age of the Gentiles, the end of the time of the Gentiles. The eagle, that civilization, the people who would carry that would be used to what? To bring an end to what we call the world, but not. It's just their time. Their time is up. Go ahead, Amiyetazar. What verse you at now? Verse 40?
Yeah, verse 40. And the fourth came and overcame all the beasts that were past, and had power over the world with great fearfulness, and over the whole compass of the earth with much wicked oppression. And so long time dwelt he upon the earth with deceit.
So this is how they've been operating. Now, the civilization known as the eagle, and I watched that ceremony, Nagaha. You know what stood out to me? The eagle on the podium of Vladimir Putin, just like the eagle on the podium of all the American presidents. Do not they carry the eagle on the podium? They had an eagle on the podium. They had the flag draped with eagles and a silhouette of St. George driving his spear through the dragon. Because they're like Christians. They're not like they're Orthodox Christian Russians are. So you have this eagle that have dwelt with deceit. Now, the Most High is not singling out any specific element of the eagle, but so that you know, Nagaha, the three heads, the British Empire, the Anglo-American Empire, which is today, and the Russian Empire. Those are the three heads. Now, I'm going to show you something. We're going to be bouncing back and forth, okay, brother? So, I'm going to read verse 40 once more. Then we're going to go to chapter 12 and read verses 10 through 13.
2 Ezra chapter 11, verse 40. And the fourth came and overcame all the beasts that were past, and had power over the world with great fearfulness, and over the whole compass of the earth with much wicked oppression.
So this verse right here is how you know now it's taken us out of the ancient days and what? And brought us into the modern times, because in the ancient days, the Romans didn't go any farther west than what? Than what is today Spain and Portugal. They didn't go any farther northwest than what is Britain, and they only got as far as Hadrian's Wall. They didn't take the north part of the British Isle, and they only got as far south as what? The northern portion of Africa, the northern portion of the land of Ham that they called Africa. The Carthaginian Empire, they didn't go any farther down. If you move farther west, they only went what? Today, the Persian, the area that's known as Benghazi, that was ancient Cyrene. And you move farther east, you get to Egypt. Then they had the entire east, as far east as what? Persia. They tried to go into Parthia, and they kept on getting their asses whipped in Parthia, just like the Greeks before them. The Most High would not let Western civilization expand beyond Persia. Okay, so that's the extent that what? That's the extent that the Roman world conquered in the old days. But why does it say the compass of the earth? Because after the Renaissance, they what? They came to the Americas and took 5 families and conquered the entire, I say 5 families because that's what those countries are, right? The Spanish were the first to arrive, the Portuguese would come, the Dutch would come, the French would come, and the British would come, and they would carve the hell up out of the Western Hemisphere called the Americas. But then guess what happened? They would turn their eyes toward Africa in the mid-1800s and completely colonize Africa. Then they would turn their eyes toward all of Indonesia, all of Oceania. So you get Australia, New Zealand, and there isn't an island in the South Pacific, in Micronesia, Melanesia, Indonesia, that wasn't conquered. Imagine being so powerful yet so greedy that you're going to find the remotest island. If they would have conquered Gilligan's Island, if they'd have known it, if it hadn't existed back then, to be honest with you, shit. I keep my map. I have a map of the superpowers between the era of 1945 and 1999. Every now and then, I'll put the map on the era of World War I, because that's the height of all of colonial Europe. Africa is completely chopped up. All of Indonesia, there isn't a remote island that wasn't look for little bitty ass. They didn't want the world. They didn't want the world to have nothing, but that wasn't them. That was the Heavenly Father driving them to fulfill just what they told the world. And today people still have a problem with it. And it's called manifest destiny. We're reading about their manifest destiny. They were intended by the Heavenly Father to do what? To conquer the compass of the earth. And to do so, like it said, with much wicked oppression. All right? Okay. Yetazah, chapter 12 now, and verses 10 through 13.
Second Ezra chapter 12 and verse 10. And he said unto me, this is the interpretation of the vision. The eagle whom thou sawest come up from the sea is the kingdom which was seen in the vision of thy brother Daniel.
Which one? We already know from chapter 11, right? It was the fourth beast. Now we know Daniel chapter 7. Daniel chapter 7 and verse 7 told us about the fourth beast, but he didn't tell us it was an eagle. He said, Esdras, I didn't expound that to Daniel. Go ahead.
Verse 12. But it was not expounded unto him. Therefore, now I declare it unto thee. Behold, the days will come that there shall rise up a kingdom upon earth, and it shall be feared above all the kingdoms that were before it.
All right, stop right there. So now what do we have here? We got this eagle who conquered the world. As we continue to go down, let's do this now. Let's go and get these images. Yetazah, go to Revelation chapter 13. I'm going to be right back. I'm going to use the restroom, so I don't know if you guys want to push pause while the thing is streaming. I don't know if you do that or not, but I'll be right back.
Yeah.
All right. So, now this is the fourth beast, right? Go from here, Yetzirah, to Revelations chapter 13. Now, what happens is Daniel in chapter 7 sees, gets a vision of the succession of kingdoms. And so the first, or I should say the fourth beast is the final beast. This is the one that the Heavenly Father is going to use. Go back to Daniel, as a matter of fact, chapter 7. Go to Daniel chapter 7, and I want you to start off at verse 23. Basically, it's just like it's a simple summary. All right.
Daniel chapter 7 and verse 3.
Verse 23.
Oh, sorry. Daniel chapter 7 and verse 23. Thus he said, the fourth beast shall be the fourth kingdom upon earth, which shall be diverse from all kingdoms, and
So
shall
when it
devour.
says diverse from all kingdoms, this is where we get the concept of the people run by democracies. We're not breaking this chapter down. If we were breaking this chapter down, we would actually go to 2nd Ezra chapter, no, we would go to 1st Maccabees chapter 8 and read verses 1 through 13, so that we could actually examine the difference between what was the Romans, the Roman Empire, and the previous empires. Now, it's talking about the Roman Empire up until the days of the to the end of the Republic. This is what they were. They were a different setup from the beginning. So they exercised all of the imperial activity of conquest, taking people's, taking nations' resources and putting nations under tribute and taking out kings and setting up who they wanted to rule in that in whatever land. They exercised that, but they didn't do it under a crown. They did it under the Roman Senate. That's what it means when it says it shall be different from all the other beasts. All of the kingdoms before that, they were still monarchies. All right. So go ahead, Yetzirah.
Daniel chapter 7 and verse 23 from the top. Thus he said, the fourth beast shall be the fourth kingdom upon earth, which shall be diverse from all kingdoms, and shall devour the whole earth, and shall tread it down and break it in pieces.
Listen, they're doing it big time through technology, right? All of their fake science, what they're doing in the name of saving the planet is destroying it because of the carbon. Carbon is one of the basic elements of life, right? In Holland, they've got the farmers not allowed to actually farm, and the people that are into the cattle, or we would say animal husbandry, are not allowed to practice that because of, I'm trying to think of what's the dangerous poison in Holland? I forgot. Oh man, I forgot what it is, but it is in America. It's carbon. Say that again.
Chromium.
I can't hear you, brother.
Chromium.
No, man, no. It's hold on. Chromium, brother. What the hell? Google head. Google Chrome. No, not it's. Hold on. I'm drawing a blank. It's basic. It's not nothing. It's not nothing elaborate, Daria. It's basic. And they're saying that the animals, oh man, are producing that. Anyway, it'll come to me. You know what I mean? When you think too hard, then it gets farther and farther away from you. But basically, they're using pseudoscience to curb the activities of life and food production and energy production and availability, and they're destroying the earth. You know, they got machines that's sucking the carbon out of the air. You got that. This is going on right now. So everything.
Ammonia.
Say that again. Yetzirah.
Ammonia.
No, not ammonia. Something else.
Methane.
Damn it! Stop doing that, man. Both of y'all. You don't do it. The more you said, the farther away it goes. It's almost there. Anyway, let's move forward. But the point is, Yetzirah, do me a favor.
Nitrogen.
Thank you, nitrogen. I want to say it's right there. I was going to say, do me a favor and look up why the farmers in Holland are being prohibited from continuing the cattle industry and farming. So they, in America, they're attacking carbon. In Holland, they're attacking nitrogen, right? And in Europe, they're attacking all sorts of what they call hydrocarbons, which doesn't mean water. It's talking about the molecule hydrogen. These are the elements that that Earth produces and feeds off of to replenish itself. The oil, petroleum, that's not fossil fuels. Ain't that many dinosaurs roamed the Earth in that long. No, they supposedly, when they say fossil fuel, they're talking about the petroleum that's drawn from the ground is from what? It's from it's a substance that derives from the dead dinosaurs. That's the Earth's blood, man. The Earth produces that, and the Russians and other countries be dropping. The scientists be dropping it. They be telling the truth about it. The Earth produces petroleum in abundance. The globe and all these different sections have stratas of just large petroleum volcanoes under it. That's what they hit in the Gulf of Mexico back in 2010. They hit a strata, and it's still shooting out at crazy pounds per square inch right to this very moment. So the point is, it says that fourth beast. Read that again, Amayetazar. What would it do to the earth?
And shall devour the whole earth, and shall tread it down and break it in pieces.
And that's what's taking place right now. All right, go ahead.
Verse 24. And the 10 horns.
Okay, that's good enough. Just 23. So that's the fourth beast. That's what's taking place right now. Now the time would come when eventually that this beast would turn on itself, meaning elements of the eagle would begin to what? To be set against itself, against other families. And this is where you have the Most High is telling you, well, let's do this. So I said about 500 years ago, I'm going to now go to Revelation chapter 13 and read verses 1, 2, and 3.
Revelation chapter 13 verse 1. And I stood upon the sand of the sea and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns. So
this beast, you're going to see what it is. Let the brother get there. Revelations, last book, chapter 13. Go ahead and read it again from the top, Amayetazar.
Revelation chapter 13 and verse 1. And I stood upon the sand of the sea and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns.
Right, so the 7 heads. Now, in Ezra, he got a vision that structured this civilization with what? With 3 heads, 12 feathered wings, or I will say 3 heads, 12 feathered wings, and then 8 contrary feathers. This is the same empire. But John the Revelator is getting a vision of what? Of the same empire, but just, let's say, I say structured different. 7 heads, which represent out of all of its components, the 7, what is the head? The 7 most powerful empires to arise out of this civilization. That's who they are. Now, I'm going to show you something. Read on down, Amayetazar.
Verse 2 of Revelation chapter 13. And the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard.
Stop right there. The beast that I saw was like unto a leopard, meaning I'm looking at a leopard. Go ahead.
And his feet were as the feet of a bear, and his mouth as the mouth of a lion.
Those are 3 dominant families of this civilization. Now I'm going to prove it to you. When did this civilization begin? Daniel has it as number 6, or I should say verse 6. The 3rd beast was a leopard. This is telling you the beast is a leopard. but it's got feet like a bear and mouth like a lion. Why? Because these are the families that grew out of the Greeks, the Greco-Roman Empire. The Greeks were the first empire that ushered them onto what? I'm going to say a beyond regional stage, because their region was Europe, right? They're like on the doorsteps of Eastern Europe. They're Western Europe, but they're the border between Western Europe and Eastern. Is that fair to say? I'm going to get this up with respect to Greece. You can look on the map and see, right? Southeastern, southwest. Give me a map of Europe. Can you do that?
Yeah.
They came from, because their father, now the Romans would come from farther west, but the Greeks are right there. What? The Greeks are right there just before you get to like Turkey. You got to cross that Aegean Sea. He's going to put a map of Europe on it. So he's telling us the beast is a leopard, but it has the feet of a bear, because the feet represent the end of the civilization. The feet represents Nagaha, the family or the kingdom of this family, who the Most High is going to use to bring it to an end. And everybody knows. Have you seen the little caricatures, how they call them, cartoons, political caricatures? There's one that's out with a Russian, with a bear that got one little bear cub sitting on his lap and four little more bear cubs run into its arms, because it represents Mother Russia, Crimea. There you go, Amiyatazar. Make it a little bigger. This is beautiful. So now you see Greece right there. I said it's kind of the border of East. You see that south. It can be called south, almost southeastern Russia. I mean southeastern Europe. Can it not? Amiyatazar?
Yeah.
Right, like if this was the United States, Greece would be almost like Greece would be like Florida. You see what I'm saying? The very bottom, because the southwest, the extreme southwest of Europe is Spain and Portugal. Right?
Yeah.
Anyway, that's the point I'm making. So this is where Western civilization began. So John is saying the beast was like unto a leopard, but it had the feet of a bear, which represent the Russian family out. Now, in 2nd Esdras chapter 11, the Russians are one of the heads. Point is, the lion, it said it had the mouth of a lion. Of all of the families of Europe, who carries the lion? That's the British, y'all. That's the British, and it began in the last decade of the 12th century during King Richard the Lionheart. Right? Whoever saw, what movie was that? I guess it would be I got that one on the tip of my tongue too. Robin Hood. The more recent Robin Hood with Russell Crowe. I don't know if y'all saw that one. Robin Hood, the one where well, I guess you had to be there. The point is that it's taken during the time of the Crusades, and Richard the Lionheart of England is making his way back through France to get back to Europe after his final crusade. Point is, he's the king during whose reign the lion that is carried today was adopted. So you're talking about 1190 AD. That represents the British. And why the mouth? Because they are the ones who still what? Are throwing out the orders. They're the one who still have, listen, I want to ask this question I asked the congregation a couple of nights ago. Why is it that all the kings on the earth come and go, and much of the world don't know about it? Oh, they'll get a little news clip, but when the Queen of England died, or when little young Prince Harry gets married, or when the other one gets a little half-nigger woman, right? Everything that the Brits do, it's global news. Why is that? Because they're the top dog crown. They're the top dog crown family on earth. That's the reality of it. Because they're the ones who's what? who's set up, they're the ones who's, how can we put it? Whose fiat banking system has been imposed and circumvented the world. And there's only a couple of countries holding out, and they are under attack. North Korea, Iran, Russia, and China, central banks, right? Not run by British Rothschild family. Point is, that's who the mouth of the lion represent. Okay, now watch this. Read on down on Yetazah.
Verse 2, Revelation chapter 13, verse 2 from the top. And the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard, and his feet were as the feet of a bear, and his mouth as the mouth of a lion. And the dragon gave him his power.
This dragon here is the spiritual demon Satan that has empowered the European civilization to do what it does. He is the force that have made this kingdom the preeminent kingdom on the planet. Now, don't get me wrong. The only way he could do that is because the Most High gave it to him and said, okay, now you give it to who you want. That's, you guys know that's Luke chapter 4. That's Luke chapter 4, verses 1 through 7, where Satan comes to Christ himself, offers him a couple of small, tempts him with a few small time temptations, then finally takes Christ, it says, to a high mountain and shows him all the kingdoms of the world in a moment's time. That means he showed them all the rises and falls and successions of kingdom and said, all of this can be yours and the glory that comes with it. For that is what? Given to me, and to whomsoever I will, I give it. If thou wilt fall down and worship me, all shall be thine. So that's how we know who runs this world. It's not Satan's world because Satan took it from the Most High and said, I'm claiming this. You got heaven and I got the earth. The Most High gave it to him. Why? Because he would be the dominant force during the time of the Gentiles. And Esau would be his last minion. Esau, or the Europeans, would be their Satan's last kingdom through whom he would operate. So he says the dragon gave him his what? Read that last line of verse 2 again.
The dragon gave him his power and his seat and great authority.
So power is what? Power is the means and wherewithal to perform what he's doing. His seat is his position. And the authority is what? Is what the Most High have said. The authority is he's the one who's in charge. He's in his authority. And we already read in 2nd Ezra, he's intended to what? To destroy the world and to rule with much oppression and deceit. This is what he was set up for. And he's doing it. Okay, I'm gonna get this done. Now listen to this. Here comes the 500 years that I was talking about. Read verse 3, please.
Revelation chapter 13 and verse 3. And I saw one of his heads as it were wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed. And all the world wondered after the beast.
That verse represents the time in history where the Romans, the Greco-Roman Empire, suffered a decline and fall. All right, you with me? It took place from about 192, 193 AD, the year of the 5 emperors. Y'all write these notes down or make sure you get to the recording. The decline began. Listen, they made a movie. I know y'all had to see Gladiator. That's an old movie. Y'all saw Gladiator, right? The death of Commodus is what brought about the year of the 5 emperors. When you had 5 generals, 5 cats that had their own legions. Once they found out Commodus was dead, whether every one of their respective armies proclaimed their respective general what? Emperor of Rome, and headed out to go and get it. Now, before they got there and started fighting over it, the Praetorian Guard had auctioned it off to a wealthy landowner named Didius Julianus. And you had cats like Pertinax, Persinius Niger, Septimius Severus, like 5 of them all together. And Septimius Severus in 192, 193 emerged victorious. But that's where the decline began. And that decline culminated in 476 AD. All right. the king or the emperor at the time abdicated the throne, and I'm trying to think of the guy's name. Odo Arc. I don't know how to say his name in Spanish, but it's a different pronunciation in English. But he was the Visigoth that took the throne after Alaric, the first Visigoth that sacked Rome. Rome was sacked like 4 times before, or 2 times before, 410 and 4 something else. And then in 476, the throne fell. So when it says that one head, it was the head of the Romans. 476 AD. Now I'm gonna show you something. Let's go get the same thing. All right, go to 2nd Esdras chapter 12 again. 2nd Esdras chapter 12, and you're going to read verse where we left off, verses 13 all the way down to verse 18.
2nd Ezra chapter 12 and verse 13. Behold, the days will come that there shall rise up a kingdom upon earth, and it shall be feared above all the kingdoms that were before it. In the same shall 12 kings reign.
Now, who are those 12 kings? Now, the Bible is calling them kings. The first one was a self-proclaimed dictator named Gaius Julius Caesar. So write down Julius Caesar. And the last one was, and his reign was like 49 BC to 44 BC. From him all the way down to Domitian, the Emperor Domitian, whose reign would be from 81 AD to 96 AD. All right. Those 12 is what this is talking about. Because before that, Rome was a republic, and Caesar destroyed that by crossing the Rubicon, brought his legions into the city of Rome, which was against the law.
You're talking about like the Civil War, right? That they did.
Yes, we're talking about the civil wars, but let me say this: it was a fluid process. So you had the wars that would erupt between Julius Caesar and Gnaeus. They were co-consuls, meaning that one spot that they were supposed to hold, 3 of them held it, and it was called a triumvirate. But that's not important. It came down to Julius Caesar would become the dictator, and then he would be succeeded by who? By Augustus Caesar, who would preside as a member of the second triumvirate, end up in a civil war with Brutus, and then move on forward. So it's talking about from Julius Caesar all the way to the Emperor Domitian. Those are the 12 kings. Read on down on Yetazar.
2nd Ezra chapter 12 and verse 14 from the top. In the same shall 12 kings reign, one after another, whereof the second shall begin to reign and shall have more time than any of the 12.
That verse is instrumental. It's landmark. It's paramount because it helps you to understand that the first one was Julius Caesar, because sometimes that point is contended. But why do we know that? Because Augustus, he ruled for like about 34 years. He ruled from 31 BC to 14 AD. And no one else came close to that time period. So he's telling you, the second one will begin to have more time than the rest. This is detailed prophecy that came to pass. Go ahead. I'm yet to
Verse 16. And this do the 12 wings signify, which thou sawest.
So that's what the 12 feathered wings signify. Go ahead.
17. As for the voice which thou heardest speak, and that thou sawest not to go out from the heads, but from the midst of the body thereof. This is the interpretation.
Now, we didn't read down that far, but when you read chapter 11, verses 7 through 10, a phenomenon took place where the eagle raised up itself on its talons and began to speak to each of its own components. And the voice that came out didn't come from none of the heads. It came from the midst of the body. He's saying that occurrence represents or means the following. Go ahead.
Verse 18. That after the time of that kingdom, there shall arise great strivings.
The great strivings, hold on, is the period from 192, 193 AD to what? To 476. I'm going to show you. Go ahead.
And it shall stand in peril of falling.
So that's the decline and fall. The decline 193 AD to 476 AD is the decline and fall. Go ahead.
Nevertheless, it shall not then fall, but shall be restored again to his beginning.
That is the Renaissance, marked by 1492. All right. Now, what is this? This verse right here is equivalent to what we just read in Revelations chapter what? Revelations chapter 13 and verse 3. It's the same message, but given to a different prophet, more recent, right? John the Revelator came 500 years approximately after Ezra, maybe 400 years after. And what is he telling us? He's telling us about this eagle going through a period where what? Where he's eliminated for a while, but then is restored. Now let's go back, Amayatazah, to Revelation chapter 13 and verse 3 again. Then we're gonna get the same thing in chapter 20. And that's where we're gonna stay because that's where it mentions Russia. All right, go ahead, Amayatazah. Revelation chapter 13 again and verse 3.
Revelation chapter 13 and verse 3. And I saw one of his heads, as it were, wounded to death.
Now stop. In the verse that we just read in Ezra, that is the equivalent of what's written in verse what? Of what's written in verse 18, where the period of great striving and shall stand in peril of falling. It suffered to fall. Go ahead, Amayatazah.
And his deadly wound was healed.
So it says that wound was healed because when they came back into power, which head? Now let me say this, you guys don't understand. A lot of this imagery is going right over everybody's head because the Most High is using images of Greco-Roman mythology to tell us who he's talking about. He's just describing the dynamic of the Hydra. That mythological creature where you kill one head, another, or two grew back in its place. And that's how the whole book of Revelation is. When you talk about the woman riding the beast on the water in chapter 17, that's taken literally from the legend of Europa. The young damsel that was out on the beach, and the so-called Greek god Zeus came down in the form of a bull, and she walked upon it and started stroking her. Then it took her away over the seas. And that is the very statue. They have a statue out in front of the EU Parliament building in Brussels with a woman riding a beast, and it's got her by the horns, and her hair is flying in the wind the whole line. Back in the 90s, the Germans had the dirt marks and coins with that image on it. They know who they are. So this right here that Amayatazah is reading is taken from what? The dynamic of do me a favor, Amayatazah. Look up Greek mythology or image, the Hydra. Sometimes they'll have it like a dragon. Other times they'll have it like a leopard or a hyena, some type of hybrid between a canine and feline beast with 7 heads or multiple heads. It doesn't necessarily always be 7 heads. They be reading the scripture, man, and they have no idea that this is literally, while he's looking with that, I'm gonna use the restroom. Y'all have to forgive me for using the restroom so much. But man, I'm on like mostly liquid diet all day, and come like after 8 o'clock, actually come like 6 o'clock, my body started paying the bills, brother. So I'll be right back.
We click back to meeting. Is that what you click? Okay.
We even got spoken. You expect it's one. It says explain. This was here. Oh yeah, he bring it down different piece, but that's what it is. He went over. And that's the reason that he's explaining the Lord and the Roman Empire from little to the other to no, this is setting so like
All right, y'all. Right. Now, let me say this. That right there is Revelation chapter 12. A dragon with 7 heads and 10 horns. Or rather, multiple heads. All right? So you see, now hold on. Let me read this. You there, Yetazah?
Yeah.
It says the learning hydra or hydra of Lerna, more often known simply as the hydra, is a serpentine water monster in Greek and Roman mythology. Now, like I said, that right, real quick, Nagaha,
Yes, sir.
read chapter 12 of Revelation real quick, and I want you to read verse 3.
Okay. Revelation chapter 12, verse 3. And there appeared another wonder in heaven, and behold, a great red dragon, having 7 heads and 10 horns.
Now tell me that in the description.
Yep.
So all of the imagery, not all, much of the imagery, do me a favor, I'm making a point now. I need you to lose that and image or the image of you got to put the young damsel Europa with Zeus. And then we'll go to a chapter and read one verse on that and get back to our point to show you everything being used, Doc, the imagery, the majority of it has to do with the civilization that the Most High is directing our attention to. But we are not studying. We don't know. But he's telling us who it is. So while he's looking for that, I want to remind you, the juncture that we read, 2nd Ezra chapter 12 and verse 18, about the eagle going through what? Strife and standing in peril of falling, but being restored to his beginning, is the very same thing as Revelation chapter 13 and verse 3, where what? One of the deadly wounds suffered a blow, but it was healed. It's the same thing. It's from the period of the fall of the Greco-Roman Empire, 476 AD, all the way to what? To 1492. Now I'm going to show you something. He didn't say that yet, but that's why we're going to chapter 20. And the scriptures tell you from that point on, the beast's trajectory, right? Nagaha, I want you to do some reading real quick while Mayetazah is waiting. Because when we go to chapter 20, we're going to need something else. Got it, Mayetazah?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll let you work it out. Nagaha, read chapter 12 again in verse 3.
Revelation chapter 12, verse 3. And there appeared another wonder in heaven, and behold, a great red dragon, having 7 heads and 10 horns. And
now
7.
stop. Hold on. Sorry, y'all. We're moving at a high pace. This is beautiful, Amietazah. Okay, Europa, the consort of Zeus. That means she was his paramour, his illicit sex partner. Now, go real quick, Amietazah, and read Revelation chapter 17. Revelation chapter 17 and start off at verse 1. You're going to do it quickly. I want you to keep that image up.
Revelation chapter 17 and verse 1. And there came one of the 7 angels which had the 7 vials, and talked with me, saying unto me, Come hither, I will show unto thee the judgment of the great whore that sitteth upon many waters.
Now you notice she's on water, but not only is she on water, read on down.
Verse 2, with whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk with the wine of her fornication.
Go ahead.
Verse 3, so he carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness, And I saw a woman sit upon a scarlet-colored beast, full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns.
Now remember, it says the woman was on the waters, but the beast, she's on the beast, and the beast is carrying over the waters. That is the legend of Zeus. Now, those are images. You guys can look up the legend of Zeus, the legend of Europa on your own, and you'll find out she was by the beach. Zeus decided to go down and take her and came in the form of a bull, a beast of burden, and she went up to it and started stroking it, and it carried her away. That's what this image is in chapter 17, y'all. Everything is directing our attention through Greco-Roman lore, through Greco-Roman mythology, to telling us who this book is talking about. Huh? Now, Naka, I want you to pick up where you left off. You're going to read verse 3 again, and then you're going to jump down and read verses 7 through 9, okay, in chapter 12. Because this is what's going to, we need this to see where the beast is headed and how eventually it was designed, it was prophesied that it would eventually turn on itself and attack Russia. Go ahead.
Revelation chapter 12, verse 3.
You can get rid of this, Yetazah. No, but I'll tell you what I want you to do in this place. I want you to get the statue of this out in front of the European Parliament building, right? In Brussels. So that they can see, yes, brother.
I was wondering who did Zeus represent?
Zeus is just a what you call it? Satan. I say Satan, hold on, because remember, that's Greco-Roman mythology, so that's one of their gods. Just like the Norwegian mythology would have Odin, and then his main son would be Thor. All of that, whereas that is Norwegian mythology, that's taken from Canaanite and Babylonian, right? Now, all they did was come and take and add to their, quote, pantheons what they got, the gods that they got from the nations they conquered. Okay, so in essence, it really represents Satan. Remember, that's the image that Antiochus set up in the temple, Zeus. Okay, go ahead, Nagaha, please.
Revelation chapter 12, verse 3. And there appeared another wonder in heaven, and behold, a great red dragon, having 7 heads and 10 horns.
Now, let me say it. Go ahead, I'm sorry, continue.
And 7 crowns upon his head.
So this entity that represents the European civilization has other names. It has other designations. In order to know that, you got to jump down, Nagaha, and read verses 7 through 9.
Revelation chapter 12, verse 7. And there was war.
Go continue, Nagaha. Hold on, let's let them get settled. Okay, go ahead, Nagaha.
And there was war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon.
Now, this is the future. This is talking about when Christ comes, Michael is going to accompany him, and the dragon is this civilization. Remember, it just said 7 heads and 10 horns. It's got the very same features, the very same characteristics as what? As the beast in chapter 13. It's just piecing this thing together, that's all. It's piecing this civilization together through imagery. Go ahead.
Michael and his angels fought against the dragon. And the dragon fought and his angels.
His angels is speaking of his what? His military. Go ahead.
Verse 8. And prevailed not.
That means they lost. Go ahead.
Neither was their place found any more in heaven.
Heaven is talking about the kingdoms of the realm of men. We'll get to that on another occasion. Go ahead.
Verse 9. And the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent.
So now listen to this, you guys. This is what's important. Because this is prophecy about what's getting ready to happen. It says the great dragon was cast out. Now it's talking about when Christ comes and destroy him. Michael accompanying Christ. But what happens is it's given us all of these different names. So the great dragon, that old serpent, is taking us back to Genesis chapter 3. This was the spirit behind the entity who deceived Eve and caused the downfall of Adam. Same spirit in them people then that's doing this now. That old serpent, go ahead.
That old serpent called the devil and Satan, which deceiveth the whole world.
This is the civilization that's been lying to the whole world. Now, hold on. You guys got to start putting all these things together. We just read in 2nd Ezra chapter, I want you to refresh their minds. Keep that image up. 2nd Ezra chapter 11 and verse 40, it said, what did the eagle dwell on the earth with? 2nd Ezra chapter 11 and verse 40, I read that.
2nd Ezra chapter 11 and verse 40. And the fourth came and overcame all the beasts that were past.
Talking about the eagle, another Edomite image, y'all. Go ahead.
And had power over the world with great fearfulness, and over the whole compass of the earth with much wicked oppression. And so long time dwelt he upon the earth with deceit.
So it's the same thing as the dragon, the one that deceived the whole world. You guys see that, right? Yes, Mawala.
You know, 2nd Ezra chapter 12 or 11.
No, that was chapter 11 and verse 40.
No, got it. Go.
Okay. Nagaha, go ahead and pick up where you left off. Call the verse out.
Revelations chapter 12, verse 9. And the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil and Satan, which deceiveth the whole world. He was cast out into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him.
This is talking about them losing their preeminence in the on the world. Right? That's all. Remember the scriptures, when it came time for us to fall, what did it tell us in Daniel? We didn't go over tonight, but in Daniel chapter 7 and Daniel chapter 8, it tells us that the beast would come and what? And cast us down to the earth and stamp upon us. And it referred to us as the stars of heaven. So whenever something is cast down to the earth, it means they're being what? They're being destroyed, they're being conquered, they're being removed from the position of their preeminence. Now, this was important because we're going to show what leads to the beast. All right, now remember this, y'all. This is what we're getting ready to do now. You're going to go to Revelation chapter 20. You're going to read verses 1, 2, and 3, and then we're going to jump down to verse 7. Now, here's the deal. This right here in Revelation chapter 20 puts us at Revelation chapter 13 and verse 3, where the beast loses one of his heads, and then later on the head is restored. All right, another one grows in its place. Oh, it doesn't say, it just says it is healed. Okay, it's also going to put us at 2nd Ezra chapter 12 and verse 18, where it tells us that the eagle would go through a period of great strife and be in peril of falling, but then be restored to its beginning. This is the very same thing, but described in a different manner. So go ahead, Revelation chapter 18 and verse 1.
Did you say Revelation 20?
Revelation chapter 20. Revelation chapter 20 and verse 1.
Revelation chapter 20 and verse 1. And I saw an angel come down from heaven, having the key of the bottomless pit and a great chain in his hand.
Now, people don't understand the key to the bottomless pit is speaking of the place that they call the continent of Europe. There's a person that I'm connected with on one of these social medias, and they brought out one of these facts about how many 800 and something tons of gold that France has, yet France has no gold mines. But how, I gotta get it, how it's what happens, this is the deal. It was 2,400 and something tons of gold, and they have no gold mines. But they had a colony called Mali that has 860 gold mines and no gold. Y'all do the math.
Wow.
I say that meaning this is how they got their wealth. Remember, when they went, what was the purpose of Marco Polo establishing contact with the Far East and trade? For spices. You guys, do you know that there was a time once in the New World, the sugar began to be produced, that sugar was worth more than a man's life? Did y'all know that? And that Haiti at one point, while the French had it in possession, was the most lucrative, that island, Hispaniola, was the most lucrative sugar plantation on the planet. I'm saying all this to show you the wealth of the world to this very day is all over the world, while Europe goes out and steals it.
Mm.
They got no natural gas. They got no, look at what's taking their place, y'all. The rest of the world is Venezuela, the United States. The United States ain't producing oil because of the policies that the presidents recently have implemented because of the so-called green energy movement. But the United States got mad petroleum. Remember, during the presidency of Donald Trump, they were what? They became one of the greatest exporters of petroleum. You guys probably don't follow stuff like that, but they were. And then the United States temporarily became petroleum independent. Venezuela and all of South America got petroleum. Nigeria and much of Africa got petroleum. We already know about the Arab world got it.
Mm.
And this is why Europe is in control of it wherever they are. Think about it. Or sets up the kingdom and upholds the kingdoms that keep them in control. You want to find out who runs all the food, right? All the food resources. Who controls everything on the earth? Europe does. Diamonds, right? Precious metals, industrial metals, rare earth minerals, the things that they use to make, the lithium for the telephone, cell phone batteries, the materials for what they call the solar panels. They control all of it, but it's found everywhere but Europe. So people think that it's called the bottomless pit because it has no minerals, and that's not it. It's called the bottomless pit because of the inhabitants' insatiability. And the scriptures tell you in the book of Habakkuk, it says they cannot be satisfied, but heapeth unto themselves all nations and gathereth unto themselves all peoples. That's chapter 2 and verse 5 of the book of Habakkuk. So listen, read on down again, Amiyatazar. So this is what I want you to do, Amiyatazar. I want you to get a map now of the Roman Empire in its height. All right, and put that on the screen. And then once you put that on the screen, you can continue to read. The Roman Empire is because it's going to tell us what took place. Basically, chapter 20, verses 1, 2, and 3 is letting us know that their empire and their kingdom was contracted. Whereas they had expanded to Northern Africa, they had expanded to the Middle East, beyond the Middle East. They had expanded northwestward toward beyond the Isles of Britain. What happened? They suffered a blow and their kingdom was contracted back to Europe. And that's what chapter 20 is going to tell us about. And it happened for 1,000 years, and it's called the Dark Ages. Now check that out. This is beautiful. I mean, hold on. Make it a little century. Make it. We wanted to see England. There you go. Perfect. Perfect. That's perfect. Now let's do this. I mean, go ahead and read chapter 20 and verse 1.
Revelation 20, verse 1. And I saw an angel come down from heaven, having the key of the bottomless pit and a great chain in his hand.
That means this angel was in charge of all the things that take place out of Europe. Go ahead.
Verse 2. And he laid hold on the dragon, that old serpent, which is the devil.
This is
and
why
Satan.
we had to read chapter 12, Nagaha, because this is what this beast is called here. It's called the dragon. We found out, we know it's talking about the same one in chapter 12 because it's given us all of those other names. He laid hold on the dragon. Go ahead, Amiyatazar, read it from that verse again.
Verse 2 from the top. And he laid hold on the dragon, that old serpent, which is the devil and Satan, and bound him 1,000 years.
So that's talking about what, and where did he cast him? Go ahead.
Verse 3. And cast him into the bottomless pit, and shut him up, and set a seal upon him, that he should deceive the nations no more.
Now you notice it's telling us that the Romans, the eagle deceived the nations. It's letting us know that the dragon deceived the nations. It's letting us know that now they were stopped from doing so. Meaning they was pushing what? Their philosophy on the world. Now listen to this. This also represents 476 AD, y'all. All right, the decline and fall of the Roman Empire. But then what would happen? Finish that verse 3 again.
Revelation chapter 20, verse 3 from the top. And cast him into the bottomless pit, and shut him up, and set a seal upon him, that he should deceive the nations no more.
So that means what happened? This is when Christianity rose. Remember, people be talking about ancient Rome was pagan. This is not, when you hear about the term the Holy Roman Empire, that ain't talking about the old empire. That's talking about basically the Carolingian dynasty, right? Coming out, the German Franks, Charlemagne, Pippin the Short, Pippin of Heristal, all of those cats, those Germanic French, those French, yeah, they were the Germanic Franks. These are the cats that stopped in the Battle of Tours the Moors from coming farther up north at the southern portion of France. This is how the Moors didn't get any farther beyond Spain and Portugal. So the point is, during these dark times, during the dark ages, Esau was not in power there. That's why, and so that's why the kingdom was retracted. You guys are looking at that map, right? In other words, during that time, what happened? Y'all forgive me. Rome lost all of that to the east and to the south and was trapped in what? Europe, fighting off the Moors, fighting off the Visigoths, fighting off the Ostrogoths, what they call the Germanic tribes, literally. And so the last battle, where the last redoubt, Muslim redoubt, they call it, the Moors redoubt, was taken in the year 1492, when the united houses of Castile and Aragon of Spain, Isabella, right, and Ferdinand, Isabella of Castile and Ferdinand of Aragon, united through a marriage, took the last redoubt in the place called Granada and drove out all the Moors, sold them into slavery, believe it or not. A lot of them cats was getting sold into slavery to the Americans, and the people don't know that. The 100,000 or more or less declared Jews were also expelled that same year. And then the final great act that took place in 1492 was Christopher Columbus was set out and headed west across the Atlantic. Now that's what we're going to read. Jump down Amayetazah, chapter 20 and verse 7. So this is what's taken place 1,000 years. They've been subjected and being subdued, but in being subjected and being subdued, they're actually being educated. The Moors brought the sciences there. The Moors brought hygiene to Europe. Then the Most High would remove those aristocratic families, those in power, with a plague in the 1300s. The Edomites was dying as well. But when they got into control, regained authority, guess what happened? The survivors are what brought the plagues to the Americas that killed off the Indians and the Negroes. Now I'm gonna read that. Go ahead, Amayetazah. Read chapter 20 and verse 7.
Revelation chapter 20 and verse 7. And when the 1,000 years are expired, Satan shall be loosed out of his prison and shall go
That's
out.
talking about 1492. The prison was Europe. He wasn't in power, so he couldn't continue to expand upon the Roman Empire. But afterward, what was once that great Roman Empire, with all of those different provinces that Daniel 7 describes as 10 horns, the new configuration is what is, as a matter of fact, let me show you. First, let's read this. Go ahead.
Revelation chapter 20 and verse 8. And shall go out to deceive the nations which are in the four quarters of the earth.
So what happened? After 1492, they did spread over the whole world. I'm a yes, now I want a map of colonial Europe and its holdings. Matter of fact, give me colonial Europe on the eve of World War I. I'll be right back.
Transition. I'm aging through after his buttons. That's what they say. That's what I was told.
I lost. Yes.
It ain't.
Okay, you got that up there? Look at this, y'all. This is the globe. Now remember, the Western Hemisphere had already been conquered, right? The Americas from the 14 to the 1700s. Into the 1800s, 1840 something, on up into colonial claims. Check this out.
You said the world.
Huh?
The world.
Say that again.
The world was colonized from the 1400s to the 1900s.
Listen to what I'm gonna say it again. I said that the Western Hemisphere, the Americas, had already been conquered, right, and captured. They weren't colonized, they were captured. Meaning Europe took possession of the entire Western Hemisphere. Right? Yes, brother.
This only with the transatlantic slave trade?
You gotta speak up. You gotta speak up.
This only with the transatlantic slave trade, or is there other things that happened
It's still not legible. You got to audible really well. You saying, is this only the slave?
Yeah, is this the transatlantic slave trade?
No, the transatlantic slave trade didn't happen until after the conquest of the Americas began.
Okay.
Right? The conquest of the Americas began with the arrival of Christopher Columbus, 1492, but he didn't bring slavery into the island of Hispaniola until about 1493, 1494, and set up sugar cane plantations and gold mines. That's what they did, okay? But then as the other kingdoms would catch ear of the new world being found and states being claimed, the British would come out, the French would come out, the Dutch would come out. Hell, even one of the Scandinavian countries ended up with a couple of the Caribbean islands. So the point is, the map that we're looking at now, by the time you get to 1840, 1900s, the entire Western Hemisphere is nothing more than an extension of Europe now. Right? The new world is now an extension of the old world, Europe. Now, this is what this verse is describing. So read that, Amayetazar. Read it again, please.
Revelation chapter 20 and verse 7. And when the 1,000 years are expired, Satan shall be loosed out of his prison.
So when did Esau leave Europe? He left Europe beginning in 1492. And what would he do? Continue, Amayetazar.
Verse 8. And shall go out to deceive the nations which are in the four quarters of the earth.
Now, how did he deceive the nations then? Every place where he went, he took his religion, y'all. We were either forced into some form of Catholicism or some form of Protestantism, but all of it Christian. Now look at how little Europe is in relation to all of those holdings. Now keep in your minds, the Western Hemisphere has already fallen. Y'all see that, right? You're looking at that, right?
Brother, can you give the times when the Western Hemisphere was conquered?
I just told you, starting in 1492. I ain't gonna give you every day. You gotta go and do your history and see when Pizarro took down the Inca, Cusco, the Inca, the capital of the Inca Empire, when Pedro de Alvarado took down the Mayan Empire, when the year that Hernan Cortez began to take down the Aztec Empire, then you had the Bandeireiros of Portugal come and little by little chip away at stake and claim and become what would become Brazil. Then you had the different English, French, and Spanish expeditions that would go and take what would become Canada and the United States. But it all began when? It all began in 1492. And so, every place has a different time where the trajectory of conquest and expansion started, but it all began with what? With 1492, and we know that. And that was after what? When you get from 476 to the fall of the Roman Empire to 1492, you got a little bit over 1,000 years, y'all. And the difference is those Roman provinces that were all united under one Roman banner, under one eagle, after the Renaissance, or I should say after the Dark Ages, during the Renaissance, they reemerged as independent kingdoms. So what was once the Roman province of Britain emerged as Great Britain or England. What was once the province of Gaul and the various regions of Gaul became France and Switzerland and Belgium. You understand? What was once Hispania became Spain and Portugal. What was once the Danube, Central Europe, became Germany and Austria and all those places. The point is, they would emerge and what? And hit all over the world. Yes.
Naga, I got a question.
Go ahead, Naga.
The Byzantine Empire.
We're not talking about the Byzantine Empire. This is not talking about the Byzantine Empire.
Right.
That's what I'm trying to show. This is not talking of this. We're following the trajectory of the beast. Okay, and bringing it all the way up into what's taking place in the news today. So I'm trying to, because if we go into the business, that's a whole different thing. That's taking 192, the year of the 5 emperors, and heading eastward into Constantinople, just across the waters from Turkey. That's a different thing. And this is, listen, and they fell. This not, do you want the thing with the Russia or not? Because that is a legitimate question, but it's not that timeline is a different timeline. Those were, the Byzantine Empire wasn't the eagle eye. The Byzantine Empire, it was referred to as the eastern wing of the Roman Empire, but it wasn't run by Edomites. Okay?
Yeah.
And they would eventually fall to Edomites, Arab Edomites, or not Arab Edomites, Muslim Edomites, Mehmed, and the Ottomans, 1453. Now, there are some people that will argue that the Dark Ages officially ended with the fall of the Byzantine Empire, but that's not true. Because Europe didn't get Europe. That had nothing to do with Europe recovering. That was Islamic Turks, Edomites, taking over a coveted city that was considered one of the 3 Romes. You had the actual Rome, you had Constantinople, and you had Moscow. That was the 3rd Rome. But that's all different history. We want to follow this so we can get, because we're actually there now.
Yeah.
Okay? Go ahead, Amiyah. Read that verse 8 again.
Revelation chapter 20 and verse 8 from the top. And shall go out to deceive the nations which are in the 4 quarters of the earth.
So this is what the European civilization did. They literally went out and conquered Australia. They conquered New Zealand. Indonesia was a complete Dutch empire. I mean, they conquered every place. They got all of that, the Solomon Islands and this island and the New Caledonia. Every place you can think of, they got it. Go ahead, Amiyah.
Gog and Magog.
Now you notice how he puts Gog and Magog there? Nagaha. It's telling you that they would conquer all the nations and eventually turn on themselves. Who would they turn on? They would turn on Gog. Now remember, Gog is Ezekiel chapter. This is the verse that's letting you know what is going to be used to put Ezekiel chapter 38 into action. It's the beast moving on them. Now, how can we take that and bring it to modern times? It all started more recently back in 2014, y'all. You gotta do is just go and find the news. In 2014, the United States, one of the undersecretaries, I believe, I'm trying to think of, what is her name? Valerie Nuland. Find out what position Valerie Nuland, N-U, I believe, L-A-N-D, what position she holds. She's behind the scenes, but she's a big time player, hates the Russians, but she's one of those who oversaw the overthrow, I think she's State Department, overthrow of the democratically elected president of Ukraine in 2014. That's where it started. This is what this is. Now let me say this. You notice it said it will go upon the earth and then and deceive the nations, Gog, Magog. So there's a trajectory that led to 2014. And guess when that trajectory began? It began a little bit after 1991, 1992, when the Soviet Union was dissolved, right? Supposedly communism was defeated. What happened? An agreement was made between the dissolved Warsaw Pact head, which was Russia, the new Russian Federation, and with the NATO members that they would not move 1 inch eastward. And guess what? Let's do a quick before and after. Get me NATO at the close of World War. NATO at the end of the Cold War. Get a map and put NATO 1991. All right. Then you're going to get a map and put NATO 2022. And you'll see how much farther eastward they moved. And so what happens is Russia's been tolerating it. Latvia, Estonia, Lithuania, Poland, they're all on Russia's eastern, northwestern flank. Their border. That threatens them. They said nothing. Down in the Balkans, Bulgaria, Romania, all of those, Montenegro, all of those Balkan states that were once part of the Soviet Union became NATO members. So Russia waited until there was only, Belarus remained friendly to Russia. They waited until there was only one more country, then Russia started complaining. But don't think that Russia haven't been what? Seeing what was taking place and preparing the entire time. So this, what we've been seeing, whether we've been seeing it or not, right, whether we've been paying attention or not, has been the beast after it conquered the rest of the world. Now it's encroaching upon God. Once he gets this, we're going to show you the map that Gog is Russia. It's the Magog. Magog is the territory, and Gog represents the government or the head of state at the time. So check this out, y'all. Now, what is this, Amayatazar? NATO stages.
Yeah.
Okay, well, hold on. We need something a little bit more easier to decide, to determine, you know what I mean? Like if there is a map that demonstrates or shows us who NATO is, or what were the NATO members at in 1991, right, when the Berlin Wall fell and the Soviet Union was dissolved. If we can get that, that would be a little bit more, be easier to navigate through. But I see, I'm looking up in the corner there, it just has some of those indicators, right, blocked off by them little things, bookmarks or whatever. So what's taking place, Nagaha, is Russia has been, there you go. Oh, that's even better. So now look at that. You guys see those purple countries, right? NATO and Russia, done change since decline or since the collapse of USSR. So you got the purple represents NATO in that year. Now look at now you know what you have there? You see what the gray is between Western Europe and Russia, the red? All of those are buffer zones that NATO had. I'm sorry, that Russia had. Why? Because it had already suffered two historic invasions, one during the time from Western Europe, one during the time of Napoleon, the Napoleonic Wars, and the other during the time of World War II with Hitler's expansion. So the Iron Curtain was literally what? It was those Eastern European countries that served as a buffer. Now, you guys got to look at that, right? Now, I'm going to go ahead and get the NATO countries. NATO members 2022. Y'all saw that great big gray area. All of that was the quote, territorial or geographical buffer protection that Russia had from the West. Russia hasn't shown aggression in its history toward Western Europe, after, let's say, actually the wars, man, they were well, allies with the United States. In World War I and World War II, World War I, they had to pull out because of the Bolshevik Revolution broke out in 1917 in Russia during that war. So they withdrew from the war to handle their own issues, and that's when the Soviet Union was set up. Anyway, we'll get this. We'll be done for now with this, and we'll pick up next time. Nagaha, you got to have it in your notes that we left off at Revelations chapter 20 and verse 8 and 9, because it said Gog and Magog, because this is what is precipitating what Russia is doing as prophesied by Ezekiel 38. Now look at it. Now look at NATO. Now the reason why they got light blue with NATO, with Finland and Sweden, is because they just applied for it, seeking NATO membership. So whereas once they had all of those countries, all they have now, Belarus is friendly. Belarus is actually deploying military for them. But Ukraine started pulling up and destroying Russia's threatening that border next to where those 4 states were annexed. All right. Now look at that, y'all. Now that's what I'm yet to hold that and read Revelation 28.
Revelation chapter 20 and verse 8. And shall go out to deceive the nations which are in the 4 quarters of the earth.
This is talking about the beast, the dragon, called the devil and Satan, that old serpent. Go ahead. After the 1,000 years, from the time of the Renaissance on, they would conquer the whole world until they got to Gog Magog. Continue to read on the exercise.
To gather them together to battle. The number of whom.
From the top. I interrupted you. Read it from the top.
And shall go out to deceive the nations which are in the 4 quarters of the earth, Gog and Magog. When
it says Gog and Magog, it's telling you that's their final objective. If when they get to that point, and what happens afterward? I'm yet to say, go ahead.
To gather them together to battle.
So this is what what battle? Read on down.
The number of whom is as the sand of the sea.
Continue.
And they went up on the breadth of the earth and compassed the camp of the saints about.
So this is from here on out. We're at the point where the great battle of the Almighty is getting ready to take place. So now Russia really wanted to. They started off as a special military operation, but Ezekiel, the Most High, told us in Ezekiel 38 that he was going to put hooks in Russia's jaws and turn Russia back. Now we're going to end it now, but you guys can kind of do the Russian civilization began in, guess what? There's little Russian, it's not a map. I guess it is a map. I have a map that shows, I think it's like during before, the era goes back to before World War II, where it shows Ukraine as a heart that is the thriving and beating civilization of Russia. And this is what they've been saying in other media sources, those 4 regions welcome home, because Ukraine is the cradle of Russian civilization. People don't know that. History, they don't, of course we don't learn that in school. So this is why the Lord said he's going to turn Russia back. But afterward, he said, I will bring thee forth. The issue is Ukraine, the beast is using Ukraine to, let's say, poke the bear. And that circumstance is what the Most High is using to bring about the prophecies of Ezekiel 38. They are actually not the aggressors. The beast or the rest of their nation is. But just like after Alexander died, the stronger of the generals began to go and attack the weaker ones and take their territories. That's what's taking place now. All right, that's what's underway, Nagaha. And so everything from here out is about escalation. The United States, the beast, the dragon, they're not about to don't get me wrong, Russia is part of the dragon. That's what we found out in chapter 13 of Revelation. It said it had the feet of a bear. Why the feet? Because this is where this civilization meets therein, huh? This is it. Everything else now is just escalation, and it's going to go beyond saber rattling. They already sabotaged critical infrastructure of Europe. The pipelines under the Baltic Sea, the United States just did that. That shuts down the gas supplies from Russia to Germany and from Germany to the other countries in Europe. But on the same day, they inaugurated another pipeline that comes from Norway to Poland. And even the beast now, the Europeans, or I should say, the United States and NATO is talking about what? Partitioning and jacking up Germany. This thing is getting ready to get really stupid, but beautifully so. So this represents our salvation. The Most High is turning them against one another like he said he would. So we'll pick up the next time around, a month from now. Okay, you guys know I'm here every final Friday of the month. All right. I'm a Yetazah.
Yep.
Thank you, brother, for your being sharp on the maps and everything, Ak, okay? And your reading. Anything you want to say to the brothers before we part?
No.
Not even shalom.
Shalom.
I'll be messing when I'm a Yetazah, y'all. not even goodbye, brother. Y'all know I'm a Yetazah chiming in from London. So you guys about what, 6-7 hours ahead of us, Ak?
What time is it, bro?
It's 4 o'clock in the morning, 12 past 4.
And that explains the relative lethargy and despondency.
That's dedication. That's dedication.
For real, Ak, it is.
But that's not dedication, that's servitude.
That you got to be a dedicated to be a servant.
I guess so.
That's what it is. I mean, listen, a dedicated servant have a servant that's not dedicated have a shitty work ethic, and you know that,
That's very true.
right? So, man, this you be rolling over playing doorknob in the bed, just bouncing back and forth, playing door on the hinges. So, brothers, we'll see you on the final Friday of October.
Well, sir.
This year flew by. Shalom, brothers.
No.
Shalom.